Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies. We are going to have a great show for you today. We are going to have a wonderful show for you today. We have a great guest that's coming in from Georgia. She's a progressive that's running very hard to win Georgia's 7th, I believe, is the district. What I want to tell everybody is that the war is on. I hate to call it a war, but that is what it's turning out to be, a war. What we have to start figuring out right now, folks, is how are we going to do this? The mainstream media is bought. The mainstream media, we cannot, look, it's not the fault of the mainstream media that they do what they must do. It really isn't their fault that they must do what they must do. But what we have to do, folks, what we have to do is we have to, first of all, if you're just joining us, I need you to share this. I need you to share what we're going to talk about today. I need you to share what we're going to talk about going forward. Because the media right now is controlled by a group of people, the plutocracy, the oligarchy, the corporatist, that will not give the message straight, that will not give the message right, that will ensure that people continue to vote against their own interests, that will convince people that things that are good for them are really not. It will convince them that we are on the fringe. Those of us who want policies to support the average American citizen, somehow we are the ones that are on the fringe. We are the lefties. We are the fringe. We are not. Let's not accept that at all. Let's accept who we really are, the people that are looking out for the well-being of the average American citizen. We need you to share. If you're just getting here, folks, please go ahead and make sure others hear a different voice, a voice not controlled by those who control our media. We're going to get started in a minute with our interviews, but we do need you to be a part of the media. We do need you to be a part of sharing what we are doing. I want to read something to you. That I wrote on my Facebook page. Very important. Got quite a bit of pushback, but I need to read it to you. I went on as follows. Many rank and file Democrats get mad when progressives castigate Democratic politicians for not fulfilling the will of the people. It was bad enough to read today that if Bernie Sanders gained winning traction, former President Obama's operative said he would speak out to quell it, according to Politico. It was not bad enough that President Obama, the president who said he wanted to be transformational like Ronald Reagan, though in the correct direction, as he won with hope and change, not talk about a declining middle class, not wanting transformational change. He now talks about a declining middle class, not wanting transformational change. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? The middle class not only wants transformational change, the middle class, absent transformational change, will not survive. Absent transformational change, the middle class. And I don't say this hyperbolically. I say this meaning it. Continuing. He needs to leave the rarefied air he is breathing with the Wall Street guys funding his $400,000 speeches for selling out the middle class. Now, the forgiven blackface-wearing governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, who now owns his House and Senate because Democrats who voted with resolve want so much more from government, now claims he will not do the most important thing to empower workers, repeals his state's right to work for little laws in his state. Imagine that. All these Democrats came out of the woodworks to vote, to give them a Democratic House, to give them a Democratic Senate, to give them a Democratic governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, because they wanted those values to permeate the entire society. They wanted to get rid of the right to work. They wanted to establish minimum wage that was really a living wage. But no. After they're all in power, then they said, oh no, we're not going to do it after all. And then folks wonder why so many stay home. It is because they think that both parties are one and the same, and they are right. The establishment of both parties serve the same masters. We, the grassroots, are the ones who have to get out there and fight the battle. We are the ones who will have to get out and fight the battles. If you're just joining us, folks, please remember to share these programs. I want millennials, Gen Zs, and young Gen Xers to listen to me. Your vote matters. In fact, along with some of us older folk, we are a distinct majority capable of electing progressives in the primaries and in the general. Do not fall for the con about the mythical center. Funny, the policies we stand for will help even those too timid to forget that what we really stand for. Who is really standing for them? Let's have each other's back and vote accordingly. No looking back. And to those who have been buying the lies, misinformation, junk science, and verifiably false economics, you still have time to atone. We have mortgaged the future of the subsequent generation and have little to show for it either personally or nationally. Many were just the tools to transfer the wealth and income of most to a few. Again, there is still time to atone. And that time to atone is 2020. So folks, it's time for us to get busy. It's time for us to get creative. It's time for us to get serious. It's time for us to stop being hoodwinked. It's time for us to stop allowing those people we thought we respected to come and tell us, no, you really don't want that. Oh no, that really isn't good for you. It is time. Folks, if you're just joining us, please share these programs, because a lot of this you're not going to hear on mainstream media, because they cannot put this on mainstream media. Why not? Because they want their advertising dollars. Okay, let's go and start talking about the program. Today we have the title of the program today is The Progressive Transformation Starts with Candidates Like Nabilah Islam. Progressives are at a flex point where they must fight both the right and corporatist Democrats. We must elect candidates like Nabilah Islam throughout the U.S. We must do so. I spoke to Nabilah Islam and was impressed with her story and drive to be the progressive congressperson Georgia needs. Who is Nabilah Islam? Having spent the majority of her life in Gwinnett County, Nabilah Islam is a fighter and an organizer, and has dedicated her life to advocating for progressive candidates and causes. Her first job were all at the Ingles grocery store and Walmart in Lawrenceville, and she worked her way through Georgia State University at a luggage store in Peachtree Corners. So she knows it all. She knows about her student loans. She knows about working hard to go to school. She knows about working hard to do what is right. Folks, we want people elected who know what it feels like. We're not saying they have to live through the tribulations if they have the ability to empathize. There are some people who don't have to live it to empathize, but there are some who must live it to empathize. We don't have a question with Nabilah. The daughter of working class immigrants from Bangladesh, Nabilah grew up knowing the struggle of living paycheck to paycheck and working long hours to get by. When Nabilah was in high school, her mother herniated 2 discs in her back, working as an order puller at a warehouse. At a young age, Nabilah took on the responsibility of helping her family find an attorney and navigate through the legal process in order to fight against the insurance company when they refused to cover what? Her care. So she is well aware of the pilfer by insurance company, the neglect by insurance company. Don't you want somebody, the people that we want in Congress are the people who understand these concepts. Nabilah does. And that's why it was so wonderful interviewing somebody who knew what was happening. So without any further ado, let me go ahead and give to you Miss Nabilah Islam. Welcome to one more edition of Politics and Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us. Today we have an impressive guest, Nabilah Islam. Did I say that correctly?
You said it correct.
And first of all, tell us what it is that you are doing. What office are you running for?
Sure. I'm running for U.S. Congress and Georgia's 7th Congressional District. So I'm running to be the next congresswoman in my community.
Now, who is currently the congressperson from that district?
So Rob Woodall, he's a Republican congressman. He's been here for 10 years and is now retiring. And so it's now an open seat.
It's an open seat. So you figure that you have a good chance of winning that seat?
I think I do. Absolutely.
Well, I tell you what, let's get started by learning a little bit about who Nabilah is. Tell me a little bit about Nabilah, because when I read your bio, I'm like, wow, this is a new person coming into the fold. I mean, you've done some politics before, but you're coming into the fold. But this is exactly what we need. Young blood in the progressive movement, doing things that others are not doing appropriately. So tell us a little bit about yourself right now.
Sure. Well, I am the daughter of working class immigrants from Bangladesh. Both my parents moved to this country about 40 years ago. They're both survivors of a political genocide. I am actually one generation removed from growing up in a tin hut, mud floor home like my mother did. And so my parents came to this country, worked really hard. When they first got here, they lived in Section 8 housing and they saved up money right before I was born to get an apartment. And we shortly thereafter moved to my district, where I grew up in 2 cities called Norcross and Lawrenceville. I'm a product of Gwinnett County Public Schools, and I went to Georgia State University and became the first college graduate in my family. And shortly thereafter, I wanted to make a difference in my community. My district has the most deportations, Gwinnett County does, the largest incarcerated population. 135,000 people don't have health care, including myself. And I've always been very passionate about making a difference in my community. And so afterwards, after I graduated from college, I worked on different campaigns and institutions. I worked for a man named Andre Dickens. I was his campaign manager. It was my first job out of college. And he ran against a 12-year incumbent backed by the establishment. He had zero name recognition, and we ran a grassroots campaign, phone banked and knocked on doors. And Andre unseated a 12-year incumbent who had numerous ethic violations. And we hadn't elected someone, so no one had defeated an incumbent in over 10 years and still has not till today. I worked on a gubernatorial campaign for Jason Carter back in 2014.
That's what really impressed me, because Jason almost pulled it out in a time that he was not supposed to almost pull it out.
Right. I think 2014 was just low turnout all over the country. People really woke up last cycle. And so he did an impressive job. I had the opportunity to campaign with President Jimmy Carter, who's very, very impressive. And so I hope he runs again for something else, because I think he has a lot to offer to Georgia.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he's going to run for something. But as it turns out, I think Georgia is one of those states that is likely to become more blue much faster than even, let's say, a Texas. So I think you probably stand a very good chance of winning in a state like that. Now, tell me a little bit about let's stop talking about if. when you make it to Congress, when you win this election in 2020, what are the policies that you stand for? I mean, I found it heart-wrenching that a 29-year-old is out there. You're no longer 26, which means you can't fall under your parents' insurance policies, that you're out there without health insurance. How does that make you feel?
It's a little petrifying. So right now, what's happening is people like me don't usually run for Congress, and so it's very cost prohibitive to run in the first place. So I've had to make some financial decisions. When I first started this, I thought to myself I was going to get a part-time job, and to be able to pay for everything that I had. But then I realized I can't. I have to do this full time in order to give the attention that this district deserves. And so I've been having to cut my budget, and I've actually I can't afford to keep my health insurance. And when I had it in the first place, it was pretty much a junk plan. It only covered like some primary care visits. If I were to go canvassing and I got hit by a car, I wouldn't have covered my ambulance or my hospitalization. So it would have been a lot of out-of-pocket costs for me in the first place. In addition, I've actually put my college loans into forbearance because I can't afford the $300 a month monthly payments that I'm making. And so I've had to make a lot of fiscal adjustments in order to do this. But I'm taking on these risks, and I think it's absolutely important that someone like me gives this community the voice it deserves.
Well, let me tell you something, Nabilah. I think it's one of the reasons I was very impressed with the bio is that you're a very smart person. You can listen to how you articulate your issues. You're a very smart person, but you understand a very important concept. And that concept, it has to start from somewhere. And not only does it have to start from somewhere, somebody who can instantiate within themselves what millennials, what young Gen Xers, what Gen Zs are going through, what this current economic model is doing to people. You can actually go into Congress and represent that, not in some sort of not in some empirical form, but in a real form. So why don't you tell us a little bit about when you go to Congress, what will you be able to tell those other people who only hear about it? You've lived it.
Sure. Look, another story that I'm going to share with you is about my mother. Growing up, my mom was an order puller at a warehouse where she picked up boxes and she put them on trucks. And because her wages were so low, I watched my mother, work longer hours. When I came home after school, she wouldn't be home because she was working overtime. Or during the weekends on Saturdays, she was working overtime to make more money. And I literally watched my mother work herself to the bone. And so she actually had 2 herniated discs in her back from that job of 14 years of just picking up boxes, and it costed her job. And so when she was having her back surgeries, her insurance company tried to deny her the benefits that she had a right to. And so we then lawyered up, we sued the insurance company, and we luckily won. But I understand now that if we hadn't, we very well could have been part of the 2/3 of families today that go bankrupt because of medical debt. I have a lived experience watching my mother. I have a lived experience having, crappy insurance on my own, that we need comprehensive health coverage for every single person in this country. And that's why I'm advocating for Medicare for All system, a single payer healthcare system that doesn't leave anyone behind.
I mean, that is the truth of the matter is, mathematically speaking. By the way, what's your degree in?
Business marketing.
Well, you understand business math. From a mathematical standpoint, there is no doubt that Medicare for All is more efficient than if you have several different companies fighting for, it makes what I find amazing is that we need more people in Congress like yourself who are willing to tell the real story, not only from the point of view of emotional, but also mathematical. and you know the mathematical reasoning behind a single payer healthcare. Now, what I want to give you a chance to do is enumerate your policies for me. What are you going to go into Congress to do, and what are you going to try to convince other Congress people over there to listen to this millennial who understands the plight of millennials to do?
Sure. Well, in addition to Medicare for All, I have an economic equity platform where I truly believe that if you put in a hard day's worth of work, you should be paid an honest day's worth of pay, and that starts at $15 an hour, and then thereby adjusting it to inflation thereafter. In my district, if a one-bedroom apartment is $1,244, and you can't afford that on minimum wage.
No.
No, you can't. And so I'm advocating for a $15 living wage. I'm advocating for a fair tax system where the wealthy and corporations pay their fair share, and the burden isn't put on the working class and middle class. I'm advocating, to make sure that we bring. Right now, our tax dollars are going to corporate welfare. We're paying, billions of dollars in corporate subsidies right now to Amazon and Boeing, and they're paying $0 in federal taxes. And so I'm advocating to set up a system where we bring those tax dollars back to our community and to our minority and small-owned businesses so that they can use those subsidies, pay their workers a living wage, and flourish. Also, some information about my district. I live in a majority minority district, and it includes, most of it is in a county called Gwinnett County. And we are the most diverse county in the Southeast and the fourth most diverse county in America. And as I mentioned earlier, we have the most deportations in the entire state because of an archaic immigration law called 287G, which basically deputizes local sheriffs to issue detainers so that ICE can go ahead and deport people. And so what this has done is wreaked havoc in my community and separated families from each other. There's a recent story, some people might have seen it, is a man named Kristen who's getting his Yale law degree or Yale graduate school, and his mother was driving through my county and she got pulled over. She's in remission from cancer, and they put her in a detention center. Wouldn't let her go see a doctor. She's been in this country for over 2 decades without any incident. And they finally today released her from detention, but we don't know whether or not if she'll be deported. I mean, we need a real pathway to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented people that live in this country. It's unacceptable that people have to live in fear like this. We need real criminal justice reform. I mean, that starts with legalizing marijuana at the federal level. That starts with ending cash bail, abolishing private prisons and detention centers. And also, nothing matters if we don't have a planet to do it on. And so I'm advocating for a Green New Deal, making sure that we move away from a fossil fuel-based economy to a renewable energy-based economy, that we reduce carbon emissions to 0 by 2030. Georgia itself, I don't know if you've ever been to Atlanta.
Yes,
it's really hot. And so we're top 10 for receiving sunshine. There's no reason that we can't be a leader in the renewable energy economy by being a solar leader.
Interestingly, there is some alliances between conservatives and progressives in the state of Georgia, where they have been trying to create solar farms.
A couple of years back, it's really interesting. They created the Green Tea Party.
Right.
In Georgia, people like to use their land, and they don't like being told what to do with it. And I feel that people really would love to create these solar farms and be able to create their own energy. And I think it would be beneficial to everyone. So those are some of the key platform issues that I've been advocating.
Well, Nabilah, here's the thing, right? Not only the right, but the Democratic Party proper has been trying to make those great ideas that are nowhere fringy the fringe. They have tried to make those great ideas, those ideas that are life savings, those ideas that are financially constructive for every American citizen. They try to make it seem like that is the fringe and unaffordable. How are you, as a young, as a millennial, as somebody who is aspiring for Congress now, I imagine you're going to have another Democrat in your race running alongside you. How are you going to make that distinction to tell those people who have been fooled by the plutocracy, who've been fooled by the mainstream media, who've been fooled by their own Democratic Party, that you, Nabilah Islam, is on the fringe? Why are you not on the fringe? Why are you the one that's real?
Absolutely. Look, I'm the only candidate right now that actually grew up in in this community that's running for Congress. I have the shared lived experience, and for so long, what I have seen in my own state is that candidates typically run on Republican light platforms.
Exactly.
But the thing is, there's nothing inspiring about Republican light platforms. It's not authentic to who we are. But for some reason, we're under this assumption that we need Republican votes in order to win. And that's incorrect, because we haven't been able to win thus far. Although I will say Stacey Abrams her election was stolen from her. But overall, though, we need to run on unapologetic progressive platforms that everyday people can relate to. We're talking about the issues that everyday people are going through. And what we need to do is expand the electorate. We need to inspire and motivate people to come and vote. And what I've seen is that people are, I don't know if we should use the word lazy, or they don't want to be innovative. They just keep going back to the same playbook. And it's like, we have these voters. You just need to speak about the issues that they're going through in order to motivate them and come out and vote. Because why are people going to vote for a Republican-like platform? I tell this to people all the time. When a Republican goes into the voting booth, they vote for the real Republican, not the fake Republican.
Right.
Run as progressive Democrats. Run as a Democrat.
But, I want to, and this being in the fold, I think these are the things that when you are on stage, you're going to have to call out. In other words, it's not just calling out what a Republican is doing, calling out the reason why Democrats are taking the Republican light position. It's not that they fear they need Republican votes. That's not the real reason. The reason they go that direction is because they fear the establishment. And the Republican establishment and the Democratic establishment serve the same masters, which tries to keep you into a mythical middle. So that is what we have to learn. So as I was very impressed with what I saw, the way you articulate the positions that you're going to be standing for. And I hope that when you go on stage, you make it known that the fringe isn't the Nabilah Islam or the AOC or the Ilhan Omar or all. Those are not the fringe. That's exactly where the mainstream of America is.
Exactly.
And I think the narrative, with all due respect, Ms. Nabilah Islam, I want more of our progressives to go out there and preach that we are where Americans are. When you call us the fringe, we call you the fringe, because the policies you support are not the policy that makes America better.
Exactly. We need to be advocating for real policies that's going to effectuate real change, consequential change. And you're exactly right. The policies that we're advocating for are where America is today. And these are the policies that's going to, bring our country back to away from, hopefully flip this country blue and get rid of Donald Trump, but also start flipping seats all over the South and all over the country.
And include not only any seats. We want Democrats who are towing the Republican light line replaced with people like you.
Absolutely. I mean, why get elected if you're not going to advocate for real change, right? We need real leaders in these positions.
Absolutely. So, Ms. Nabilah, before I ask you to tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can support you, I'd like you to tell me, our audience, anything that I have neglected to get you to tell us.
Neglected to, let's see. I'm trying to think right now. I think we kind of talked about everywhere on the issues. If people want to get to know more about my campaign, they can go to my website at www.nabilahforcongress.com. I also have a Twitter at Nabilah4GA07, and Instagram is the same thing as well.
Well, I'll make sure that under when that all of that is made available in our blog for this, as well as when it goes on air, so people will know exactly how to reach you. Miss Nabilah Islam, I am very happy that young people are stepping up. I'm very happy that you are stepping up, and I want those that are listening to Nabilah right now to realize that she is stepping up, not only at a cost. She is costing herself much to do what is right. And like we've always said here on Politics Done Right, when many of us wake up in the mornings, we constantly say things like, why don't somebody do something about that? Why don't somebody do something about that? Nabilah looked in the mirror. And who did you see, Nabilah?
I saw someone that's going to implement real change, the next congresswoman of this district.
There you go. Nabilah Islam. It was my pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so kindly to be on Politics Done Right.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed that interview. What we're looking at, folks, is the future. We're looking at people who decided to step up. We're looking at the future of America, the future of people that really want to do well by America. Somebody called earlier, and since we're on the tape portion of the show, we couldn't answer that. But if you call back now, we'll be able to take your call. So please feel free to call 646-716-5812. Again, that number is 646-716-5812. I want to read something here that came, because we're all talking about why don't somebody do something? Why don't we do something? Well, luckily, we know that Obama came out recently talking about America doesn't really want the transformation that progressives are looking for, albeit from the person who believed in hope and change, for the person who believed that he wanted to be a transformational president like Ronald Reagan was in the right direction. Well, that's not what we got out of the words of the president over this week. So today, in the Chicago Sun-Times, Jesse Jackson wrote an article, a prescient article. And I want to read some excerpts out of that article because I think you'll find that what he had to say was rather important. The title of the article was, "If Democrats Don't Go Bold with Social Reform Right Now, Then When?" And then under the subtitle is, "When we can afford these things, with inequality reaching new extremes and corporations and the wealthy rigging the tax code to their benefit, we can pay for them without raising taxes on middle and low income Americans." And that's what we've been saying. In fact, even while Bernie Sanders said, "Oh, we'll raise your taxes," Bernie Sanders wasn't as esoteric as, I don't know if esoteric is the right word, as Elizabeth Warren was when he explained, when he said, we'll raise. No, Elizabeth Warren said, no, this is how we can do it without raising specific taxes on the middle class. And I don't even think she needed to do that. I think she should have gone further, because the reality is, all she needed to say is, look, right now your taxes are immense because you're paying taxes to a private corporation who is funding who is paying for your healthcare bills. That's a tax. So in effect, she should have said most people taxes with Medicare for all will go down. Marketing is not the strong point to Democratic candidates. They need to be out there bold face, stating as fact, your taxes will go down with Medicare for all. I repeat, look people in their eyes and tell them, Medicare for all will lower your taxes. Punto final. When somebody wants explanations to say, well, you're going to pay more X, Y, and they say, look, here are your taxes. You pay Social Security tax. You pay Medicare tax. You pay your income tax. You pay your insurance tax. And if they want to argue that, say, remember, when the Supreme Court rendered that the mandate was legal, they called the mandate a tax. So your taxes will go down. People, it's all in narrative, and those on the right like to use, and when I say on the right, I'm not only talking Republicans, like to specify a narrative. You'll take a look at Medicare for All. It's been fallen in acceptance. It went from above 50% to right now it's below 50%. And the reason why is narrative. Narrative. We have allowed the narrative to get away. So, here's what Jesse Jackson said. Too radical, impractical, too costly, impossible, can't pass the Senate. Those are the terms centrist Democrats use to describe the bold reform ideas put forth by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren in the Democratic presidential primaries. Venezuela, socialists, communists, stripe, crazy, are the jives preferred by President Donald Trump and Republicans. All this begs the same question. What do they plan to do to meet the challenges we face? What do they mean to do? For most Americans, this isn't a rhetorical question. The economy Trump boasts is as good as it has been in terms of top-line unemployment figures, but it still doesn't work for most Americans. It still doesn't work for most Americans. Wages have been inching up, but they aren't rising as fast as the cost of basic housing, college, healthcare. Working families, whether middle or low income, are struggling simply to stay afloat. Depths of despair are soaring, particularly among the young. Illness is still the leading cause of bankruptcy. None of this has changed, people. None of this has changed. And you know what else hasn't changed? Policy to move it forward. Half of all Americans have no retirement plan other than Social Security. The climate emergency is a clear and present danger, costing more lives, more displacement, and billions in damage each year. If we are going to address these changes, we need reforms that correspond with the size of the problem. An adhesive bandage won't stop a leg hemorrhage. A wall can't shut out the cataclysmic storms, droughts, floods, and tides of the climate emergency. The Green New Deal, mocked by Trump and Republicans who continue to deny the existence of man-made climate change, it's ambitious and costly, but only because it tries to meet the goals that scientists are necessary if we are not to become an endangered species. Getting to a clean energy, zero carbon emissions economy requires massive investment, new innovation, and dramatic changes in transportation, housing, energy, and more. The transition will generate millions of new jobs while displacing some form old jobs. The Green New Deal proposes a job guarantee to make certain that no one is left out of the transition. Critics say it costs too much, but it costs far less than the price we'll pay now. Please, don't be fooled. They like to say things are going to cost a lot. What they don't tell you is, what is it going to cost not doing it? What will it cost not doing it? More students have to put off college or drop out for years in order to earn enough to get the education that all agree is vital to our economy and their future, our country and their future. More students graduate with debt than will burden their lives, making it harder to afford to have children, to save for a house, to put money away for retirement. I just read that we are not making enough babies to keep America at its same population level, which means those people who require the services of those that come after them will be in dire straits. Debt is crushing a generation that tries to do the right thing. It is particularly brutal on people of color who have less of a chance to have parents with the wealth to help pay for tuition. Tuition-free college, mocked as a costly giveaway, simply argues that publicly provided education or advanced training should be extended beyond kindergarten through 12th grade. Not only that, it is what I call pay it forward education, because what happens is when that person is well educated and they make more, they pay more in taxes, and that then helps the next generation. How can our society thrive if we condemn the best of the next generation to a life burdened by debt? This is one of the richest countries in the world. We can afford these things. How many times do we have to repeat this? We can afford it, and it won't cost the middle class and the poor any more than they're paying right now. Why is it so hard to believe it? We've been lied so much by the plutocracy that we can't believe it, but it's true. When I tell you, folks, it is true, I mean it is true, and we'll go into a little bit that I'm almost done here. Centrists suggest that only modest, piecemeal, admittedly inadequate reforms have a chance to gain the support needed to pass, but preemptive compromise doesn't inspire fear or fervor. What's needed is a clarion call that lays out what is essential and builds the public support necessary to tackle those standing in the way. Republicans oppose Social Security and Medicare as socialism or communist notions. They passed because Roosevelt and Johnson built the majorities and claimed the mandate to get them passed. The argument that these reforms are too radical, too left, also fails on its face. These basic reforms, the right to adequate health care, the right to an education, the addressing of the existential threat posed by climate emergencies are not left or right. And that is where we build our majority. These are not left or right issues. They represent the moral center. The values they express are not un-American. They are central to the American dream. It isn't radical to suggest that all have health care or all have access to good education. It's just common sense. It is just common sense, and we are badly in need of a strong dose of that. Folks, don't believe the hype. We can afford all these things that they claim we can't afford. Let me tell you something that I spoke to my group on air yesterday, KPFT 90.1 FM, Houston. I tried to explain to a person over there. I told them the following. Hey, guys, when the banking system went under, we had something called quantitative easing. In other words, we made the system whole by the government making the cash flow necessary for these systems to stay whole. You want to get America driving again. You want to get the economy striving again. We can forgive all student debt with quantitative easing, not for banks, but quantitative easing for our students, for all those who pay to go to college and make this a stronger, a better country. But do you know why it is? Do you know why nobody wants quantitative easing, even though it will make the economy that much better? Why? Because instead of these money flowing to bankers who just throw the money into a bank and maybe loan it out to somebody else that's not going to spend like the average American citizen, they don't want to lose those monthly payments that is harming the middle class. They don't want to lose that interest rate on all those payments. So if the government says we are going to do quantitative easing now for the average American citizen, for the student, they start to talk things about moral hazard. If you forgive that, then what's going to happen? We're going to teach them that your debts are going to... No, we're talking about student debt. We're talking about student debt that was created because of a lack of taxes that you corporations have imposed by purchasing politicians who pass laws to starve themselves and then extract that starvation from the people who need an education to allow your companies to function so that you can enrich the owners of your companies. It's that simple. We have to get things basic. We have to understand that we're not begging for free things. We're not asking anybody to give us anything for free. We're not telling anybody, we just want to be we want to be responsible. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about good fiscal policy. And good fiscal policy dictates that we do loan forgiveness for college. And you know what? We can have some sort of a pay it forward if somebody wants to include that somehow. I mean, we have a lot of smart people that can think of ways to say, okay, thank you for the loan forgiveness. Now you have to give X amount of social work, or I don't know. There are ways that we can do these things. There are ways that we can do these things. But bankers, we've always talked about people not wanting to give free stuff, but we've constantly given free stuff to the rich people. I mean, if you doubt it, if you have a lot of debt and you get a credit card. You are the person with a lot of debt. You cannot afford a whole lot. What does a credit card company do to you? They give you an interest rate sometimes twice what anybody else has because you have a lot of debt. So they're going to extract more money out of you because you owe a lot. And then they say, well, because you're a higher risk. Why don't we just call credit cards a big risk pool? Those that are down on their luck are probably going to have problems paying. Those are not down on their luck are going to not. And then they say, well, moral hazard. No, let's start teaching civics in school again. Let's start teaching people what it is to be a good American. Let's start teaching people why responsibility of debt, responsibility of all these issues matters. Let's start doing that. And then we can start talking. Let's see. Lauren says it appears that ladies are taking care of business. I am not sure what you mean. Bernie is not able to explain his position on how he will do his political. Bernie is kind of brash in the way he say things, and yes, I think Elizabeth Warren is a much better explainer, and as much as many prefer the sort of brashness of Bernie Sanders, but Elizabeth Warren does a good thing in explaining. A lot of my cohorts, they don't trust Elizabeth Warren. They think that she will coalesce, or rather that she will cave to the plutocracy. I personally don't think so, but what can I say? We are going to have to simply keep our heads above the ground. Raphael Coyle says, I understand the student loan issue, but why aren't these people going to community college? This money pays for other things beyond school. Again, Raphael, I understand what you're saying, to start at community college to get your basic the things that you really don't need at a 4-year college. The truth of the matter, I'll be frank with you. You're correct that it would be nice if a lot of these people started at community college, right? They didn't. They weren't incentivized to do that. A lot of people don't quite understand the concept, and a lot of people like myself, I wanted to go to the big university straight through. Okay, so that's there. Now, if we put that basic on it, we're saying only those who can afford to go to the big universities can go. If you're poor, you're relegated to community college. We have a different paradigm. Progressives should have a different paradigm. Everybody who wants an education, every school should create the criteria for admitting students, and then it's sort of a rat race to every school, junior college or whatever that you can get into. And if you pass the criteria and there's space, you get into it. Whether you can. Hi, Lee Grant. Welcome aboard. Raphael Coyle, Lawrence Sims, Masticator, Bruce, Kathleen Morgan. Love to have you here. So, I mean, my theory or my suggestion always is that, you should be able to go where you want. You get to pay for that choice, community college and then the larger university. Okay, I don't know what you mean you get to pay for that choice. In other words, you're saying, I don't even mind that to say that community college is cheaper than main college, and yes, that's the case. And I don't even mind saying that if you want to deduct from the forgiveness the first 2 years based on the delta of what a community college would have cost, I could also deal with that. But what I'm saying is, we need to educate people on these issues. I don't have all the answers. None of us have all the answers. What we do know is that what we're doing today is wrong. What we're doing today is immoral. What we're doing today is not good for the country, and it reflects itself in where we are as a country, the success rate of people. So all of that is reflected in where we are today. And, we can blame a kid who decided to go to Princeton, who could have just done as well, just putting his money into a public university. That's how I feel, at least. I told my daughter she would have to go to a college in Texas with in-state tuition. I would give her the full ride for her undergrad, which I did for her undergrad. Her medical degree, she's paying for it with student loans, and she is going to be in a huge amount of debt because she got her master's and she got all the other things. So, folks, I tell you, I tell you, I thank you very much for your comments. Anybody wants to add a comment before we close the show? We're getting close to the end, and what I want to do is play a thank you for all of you who've always been. I don't know if you guys understand how much I appreciate your coming to Politics Done Right, you're listening to Politics Done Right. Because if it weren't for what we are doing here, if we were not doing what we are doing, there's a lot that wouldn't get done. So what I want to tell you folks is, I want to tell you how much I've appreciated what you guys have done with this show. And notice what I've said, what you guys have done to the show. And what I want to do is play you this little thank you. Patrons and prospective patrons, thank you for your support of independent media. Why is it crucial? We are not dependent on the whims of those who advertise on the platforms we use to bring you news, truths, opinions, and empowerment. We ensure that all of those who must have a voice, whose voices have been silenced or ignored, are heard. Those who have messages and narratives to better us all have a place and an outlet to do so. With all the misinformation out there, our platforms give you power. You are integrated into a network where no one has a monopoly of ideas.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.